Mississippi. Hey everyone, this is Lucas, and welcome to episode 2 of the Foojee Show, Apple 9 to 5. Given this week's WWDC event, I thought it would be good to have a couple of extra people on the show today. So I'm joined by
Daniel,
Justin. Cool. And what we're going to try to do today is really distill a 2-hour event down to a whole lot less than 2 hours, and just really give you the highlights and commentary on what we think is important. And as we're going to be doing with this show, from the angle of business. So if you are an executive, if you're in IT at all, or you just like technology and you work for an organization, we really want to make this applicable to you. So let's just start from the top of the list, go chronologically through the presentation.
Cool.
And yeah, we'll just keep it on the highlights. So what's first?
They started off with watchOS.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like we're finally getting that new feature in watchOS 3 that everybody's kind of been scratching for, which is speed. I can now open an app on my Apple Watch, and it opens just like kind of does on my iPhone. They're finally catching up a bit.
Funny concept.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been something that I've personally been kind of frustrated about.
Yeah.
We're early adopters, so we expect the first generation to, be working out the quirks. But yeah, when you're trying to be efficient with something, trying to do something on your wrist without reaching, for your phone, but it literally takes 10 seconds for an app to load. You start to just lose a little bit of faith. It creates a habit to not want to do that next time.
Yeah.
And they gave live demos. I think they said it's 8 times faster. So again, novel idea, but when you launch an app, it'll actually open.
Good. It's going to be great. Good.
And it kind of gives me faith just in the platform as a whole, because they're not saying you need, a future Apple Watch for it to be faster.
Right.
The enhancements will be upgradable on the current Apple Watch. Of course, they didn't announce any new hardware at all. But it gives me faith that, hey, for resale value, it should hold up if current watches are going to be able to take advantage of this. And if I want to recommend a watch to someone, to go buy one today, it's going to be usable for a while.
Yeah. You always kind of think, with speed, do you sacrifice battery life? But I kind of keep coming back to battery life seems to be really important for Apple. Their iPads, their iPhones, their Macs, whether it's a MacBook Pro or the a regular MacBook, they really do focus on battery life. So I'm not super concerned.
Right? Yeah, I think I go to bed every night and set my watch on the charger, and it's usually only down to about 46, 48, maybe even 50%. Unless I've gone for a run, in which case it's probably down closer to 30 because it spends that whole time monitoring my heart rate and everything else. So, I mean, if they can make it not take a hit on battery life, that'd be huge.
Exactly. Oh, let me zoom out for a bit and just mention that out of all the announcements yesterday, there were no new products announced. Like nothing, no new hardware to purchase, no new iPhone, iPad, Mac, or anything. This was 2 hours of just software. In fact, they split it up between each of their 4 platforms: watchOS, iOS, tvOS, and the macOS, which they've now renamed the OS 10 operating system.
Yep.
So just wanted to give you a heads up there. We're really just talking about enhancements that everyone will get. Mm-hmm. That's what I love about software. Like it's not the cool shiny new object, but with Apple's business model, now all of these upgrades are free. No one's having to pay for these upgrades in this fall, which is when all these features will be out. Everyone watching this, whichever devices you have, you'll kind of get a new refresh.
Awesome.
What else on watchOS 3 before we...
Just better sharing, especially as it pertains to fitness, because I think the fitness side of the watch is really popular. So you can, I don't know if it's competitions or I think sharing your fitness with other people is a big deal. Probably a big deal to this guy.
Which, I mean, if you share your information with me about how many steps you're taking and how many miles you're going, then that just immediately makes me want to compete with you because I need to beat you.
You need to beat, okay.
Bill from Foojee,
Yeah.
and I have been competing in a step challenge with a number of other people for a few weeks, and he's been beating me by about 20,000 steps each week, and it's driving me crazy.
Every time I see him on the phone, he's like pacing.
Yes, he's always pacing, and I'm always sitting and typing, and I just have to figure out some way to set up like a desk around me, and I can walk and type maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Boy, that sounds like a great idea.
That'd be great. Maybe
Wow.
just one of those roll-out rubber keyboards that you see hackers on TV using.
We've had clients ask us, "Hey, where's your rollout keyboard?" You know, don't all nerds.
I don't use a rollout
We
keyboard.
don't have rollout.
Sorry.
keyboards, so. Well, to that point, any additional like competitions or sharing that you want to have with any health features of the watch to this point have required third-party apps.
Right.
Now it's going to be a built-in feature of the watch.
Cool. All right, cool. Let's move on to tvOS.
Okay.
I think every tvOS, they're definitely making some great steps forward. This one, the biggest one that rang in my head was the single sign-on.
Mhm.
I know from personal experience, if I sign into the ABC app and then sign into the ESPN app and then I'm ready to watch a show on the Fox app, I have to sign into each one, and I think they've eliminated that.
Right. Yeah. Have any of you guys had that issue? Like, especially when you're like helping with a family member, like set up their Apple TV, or you're at an office, setting up multiple, and you want to just use the product, but every single app you go to, you have to, visit a certain website and authenticate with your cable subscription.
Right.
So they're just going to streamline that, and you sign in once, and every app will just be unlocked, if you will, to be used.
It's great. I like
Anything
it.
else on?
They improved Siri search functionality.
Oh yeah.
But other
Search
than
within YouTube.
Right.
The app,
Yep.
app on your iPhone, which I usually use the remote app on my iPhone more than I use the actual
Really?
Apple TV remote. I lose the Apple TV remote about once a week.
Mhm.
Find it,
It's
throw
on
a
par
party.
with our family.
Yeah, exactly. Throw a party. Yay, we found it. We don't have to go buy another one and then lose it immediately afterwards. So I'm that's good.
I just put it in the same place every time. It's kind of like my keys.
Well, that's a great idea.
Well, even we do that. Like this awesome company called Studio Neat. They've made some pretty cool trinkets for Apple, equipment. They've got this like walnut little cradle. It's $12, but it's still $12 of value. And we just stick it on our mantle. Goes there every night. But that doesn't help when we're watching a movie, lights are off, and we go to move on the couch or something, and like the movie pauses because we've accidentally clicked the remote. Can't tell you how many times it's happened. So won't go on this rant for much longer, but I'm hoping that there's a new remote that comes out this fall. I think you would agree, right?
Oh, I don't think they're going to do a new remote, but I would love a remote like maybe this big, and then I'll never lose it. So,
Right.
Cool. Let's move on to macOS, which, like you said before, they removed the macOS 10, so 10.10, 10.11, 10.12. It's just macOS, iOS, tvOS.
Right, they just wanted to fall in line with how everything else has been named. So more of a nerdy, thing that we kind of get excited about, like, a new naming scheme for the operating system. So the one coming out this fall is macOS Sierra, right?
Yep.
So let's run down the list. What was first?
So I don't know why, but I got more excited about the Mac OS reveal than I did anything else yesterday, and I don't own a Mac anymore. This iPad Pro right here is the only device I have. My wife has a MacBook Air, but I have an iPad Pro that I rely on. However, I probably got excited because I'm going to sell my iPad and go back to a MacBook Pro. I've had it for about 7-8 months, but I've found in the last 2 months really with some of the stuff we've been doing at Foojee that I need a MacBook Pro and its editing capabilities with Final Cut or graphics in Photoshop. And those are things that iPad can do, just not as powerfully as I would like. So I'm excited about Mac OS Sierra, especially because of the auto unlock feature.
Yeah, so explain that.
So basically, when you open up your Mac and you type in your password, that takes 5-10 seconds. The idea behind
If you get it right.
Right, if you get it right the first time.
If you're like at a
which
slight
a
angle,
lot of people don't.
you usually miss it.
You're typing it in
Yep.
for a person, and
Yeah, exactly. Auto unlock will be you open up your MacBook, and if your phone's in your pocket or on the desk, those two devices will be communicating, and it'll just unlock for you.
it's your phone or your watch or both.
I think it's watch.
Think
Is
it's
it?
watch?
Yeah, because the reason why is someone else could have your phone, right?
Yeah,
Like
the
someone
watch
could
should
take your
be-
phone and just walk
should
close.
be on you.
Whereas the idea with a watch is when you type in your 4 or 5 digit passcode on your watch, that's now authenticated as you
I mean, you can make
until
a
you
payment.
remove the watch.
You can make a payment with your watch without your
Exactly,
phone
right.
on you. So that kind of makes sense, I guess.
Right. So it's using Bluetooth basically in close proximity. If you've just unlocked your watch, for that day,
Right.
it unlocks it.
Assuming it works right. Sorry, Justin.
Yeah. Okay.
Assuming it works right, this is going to be great because I actually paid for an app a while back called Mac ID that was the exact same concept. It used your phone or your watch to authenticate your password on your Mac, or you could do all these other features, but it just never seemed to quite work right with the Bluetooth and having your phone even like on the desk right next to your device. It just wouldn't quite figure it out, and it was supposed to be like if you walked away more than 10, 15 feet, your Mac would then lock. And it just didn't ever quite get it right. So I
Yeah.
hope Apple's nailed it because that'd be a fantastic feature.
And I mean, there's no reason now, especially for businesses, to not have a secure password. Like,
True.
let's not make it password or 1 2 3 4. Let's make it a legit password, because maybe 6 out of the 10 times or 8 out of the 10 times you're really not going to have to type it in now.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great feature. That's not just a fun kind of tricky feature. I think that's security based.
Yeah,
that's great.
if you're on the fence about like having watches in the organization, I know a few of our clients are moving that direction, like for health incentives.
Yep.
This will just kind of be a little security incentive too.
Right.
Next on the list is one of those fundamental features, just that as computer users for the last couple of decades, we're very familiar with the copy and paste concept, right? But they're just turning on this little feature that I think will make it a little more fun and easier for everyone to use. And what they're doing now is called a universal clipboard. So if you ever pin on your iPhone and you want to highlight some text and maybe paste it right over onto your Mac or your iPad, now your clipboard, when you hit copy, is instantly going to transfer between the devices you own that are signed into your secure iCloud account. So kind of novel. You wouldn't think they're still innovating on the copy and paste front in 2016.
Yeah.
But the audience went bonkers on clapping.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
So did my wife when I told her. I told her
Yeah.
about it, and she thought it was the most amazing thing they've done in years.
Maybe it is.
Makes sense.
Just kind of going through a few more quickly, like iCloud Drive. I think they're going to take specific files on your Mac, optimize it, and store some of them on iCloud Drive to free up space on your drive, on your internal drive, which is great.
Pretty cool. So real quick there, that's kind of interesting. We get several tickets a month of people's computers, their Mac hard drive, getting filled up.
Startup disk full.
Exactly. And so with this feature turned on, the Mac will just magically take files that you haven't used recently. I don't know what that threshold will be.
Yeah.
And automatically move them to your iCloud account. It'll probably keep the shell or thumbnail on your computer. Decline that call. And then download it on the fly when you do actually need it. So while that's a cool feature for businesses, we don't know all the details right now, but I imagine currently for businesses, we're going to need to find ways to prevent that feature from being enabled on company-owned computers. So I imagine that's going to be added to the MDM spec.
Oh, that's true.
But none of those details have been published yet, so we'll stay on top of that.
Cool. Picture-in-picture, like you can do on the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's fun, even though I probably won't turn that on because then I'll just get distracted. Apple Pay actually in a browser, in Safari, on the web, and then it authenticates to your phone with Touch ID. So that's cool. When you're shopping, it's going to be easier to check out.
Yeah, it's I think the new digital wallet. And the way that works is, so you're online on your Mac, right? Sitting on the couch or in the office, and you go to pay. It'll actually require you to grab your iPhone and just authenticate with your thumbprint.
Right.
So still secure.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your digital wallet.
And then the last one that I think is really neat is Siri for the Mac.
Yeah.
And I know some people are heavy Siri users and some aren't.
Mhm.
But this is just one way to kind of bring in iOS and macOS, the similarities, which Siri on macOS. So
Yeah,
it's cool.
and the big one there, they did a live demo of how Siri is going to work. If you ask Siri, like, you're working on some proposal and you want just a graphic or an image off the web, you can ask Siri, search for this picture on the web. It'll actually provide you with a visual kind of interface, and you can drag and drop those pictures right into your keynote presentation, for example.
You don't have to visit the website to pull the image. You can actually pull it straight from Siri's results.
Yeah, kind of interesting, because Siri up to this point has been a very intangible interface.
Yeah.
It's all been, audio and audio interface. So now they're bringing that to the Mac, and now the Siri's results, basically, you'll be able to drag and drop from. So that's
Awesome.
a welcome feature. Yeah.
Cool.
That about wraps it up for macOS, right?
Yeah, let's jump to iOS 10.
So staying on that numbering scheme with iOS.
Looks like there's some updates to the lock screen, notifications. They're using the word widgets a lot now.
Right,
It's
so
just crazy.
I guess without getting into the weeds, the whole lock screen and home screen experience is going to have a lot more features now. Meaning swiping from the left and right are going to give you more options. Control center, where you swipe up from the bottom to turn on Wi-Fi or airplane mode, things like that. That's going to have its own set of pages. So they're bringing more functionality to just the home screen by swipes, and also 3D touch is another component to that.
Right.
In fact, right now when you want to take a picture on your iPhone from the lock screen, you swipe up from the top, and sometimes I have to kind of like
Find
rearrange.
the right spot.
Yeah, find the right spot, or if I accidentally unlock it. Now you'll be able to just swipe from the right, and that'll activate the camera.
Awesome.
Big update from Siri for iOS, and actually this will be available on macOS too. A lot of us were hoping for this feature enhancement with Siri, and it's great to see that Apple is listening. Siri is now going to be able to integrate with third-party apps. Okay, now Amazon's Echo was kind of the first AI kind of digital assistant to have this feature, and the feedback from the Amazon Echo has been awesome. And everyone's been wondering, when's Apple going to come to the plate with integrating with third-party apps, and they finally have. So that'll come this fall. To give you an example, that means you can be, walking out of your hotel room, and if you need an Uber, just click Siri, say, "Hey Siri, can I have an Uber?" Or call me an Uber, and she'll go ahead and call an
Find
Uber,
one for
obviously.
you.
So whatever
That's awesome.
third-party app, there's going to be integrations with HomeKit. So if you take advantage of any devices at your house, like your lights, fans, garage door, Siri will be able to hook into that too. Little note in the future, one thing that I failed to mention, maybe we can do this on the edit, is we have to remember not to say, "Hey, Siri," because when people watch it back, it's going to trigger everyone's device. So I've learned that on a couple of podcasts
Unless you have it turned off.
that I've done.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
but most people have it on without knowing. So anyway, maybe we say, "Hey, Siri."
Sure.
It's like, anyway. So what's next?
I think the Photos app has made some improvements. Looks like it's using a little bit more of the AI, figuring out where you were, how long you were there,
Who you were with.
who you were with,
That's a big part of it.
and make some compilations of movies and albums, that kind of stuff. So,
Right, so it's taking a lot of the photo management that a lot of us never have time to do or make the time to do, really leveraging what they're calling deep learning, really trying to gather people's habits and have your computer recognize similar photos and automatically group them together. So you will actually be able to do a search for beach photos, and it'll just pull beach photos from your entire library. You can make a slideshow and video right there automatically. So all of those are very welcome in my book. Yeah. What else? Maps. This is going to be cool. I use Apple Maps All the time? Do you guys use Apple Maps? No?
Yeah, I do.
What do you use?
I have always used Google Maps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, always. Ever
Well,
since the debacle a few years ago with
Yeah.
Apple Maps, I was like,
I go back and forth.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm in
I always knew that they were going to get better, and they have.
Right.
Like,
okay.
I
Yeah.
exclusively use Apple Maps. I had to restore my phone a couple of months ago, and I haven't installed Google Maps yet. Don't know the last time I used it. And so not only do I feel like their search results have gotten a lot more accurate since the app first came out, but this new set of features coming out are really putting it neck and neck, I think, with Google Maps, meaning proactive traffic alerts that'll automatically reroute you if it sees traffic.
it'll actually show you the traffic color along the route, which I don't think it's done in the past, correct?
You're right.
Kind
Yeah.
of like Google Maps has done.
Yep. The other one is you can find search for destinations on the way. Like if you're on the way somewhere,
Yeah.
it's an hour away or 10 hours away. You can just ask for, hey, coffee along the way, and it'll go ahead and do that for you. So
I think you can even book, like with Open Table, you can book.
that's right.
Not
We did that
appointment,
with
a
demo.
reservation within the app. You don't
Right.
have to go to the Open Table app.
So they're going to be offering integration with third-party apps into the Maps app,
It's great.
so you don't have to leave it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Apple Music got a redesign. I think most notably for me was I was totally expecting them to do away with the Connect tab, and it's gone.
Right.
Based
Which is
on the
tab.
demos they showed us.
Every time I used it, it was an accident. So that
The
feature.
first time I
so-
clicked it was yesterday during WWDC's
Right.
keynote to see what it actually did, or if I had any interest now that it was gone.
Yeah, so I think they're simplifying the design, which I know I'm gonna like. I use Apple Music. My wife and I do love the service. So glad they're continuing just to simplify that. Apple News, came out last year. This is an app that's built in on your iPhone. I know a few of us on the team
Yeah, I use it.
love the app. I know
Yeah.
my wife loves the app. She's sending me articles out of that. It kind of aggregates articles for you based on your interests. So that's being redesigned. Anything else? Oh, I think they're now going to include subscriptions, paid subscriptions, within the news app.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
if you like Wall Street Journal or any magazine subscription, you're now going to have that just combined with all the other online news that you're reading into one app. All right. Next is HomeKit. Do any of you guys have any HomeKit devices? You do?
I have one. It's by iHome. It's
Okay.
just one single plug. And I use it for a set of lights right now, but I'm thinking about moving it to my iron. Like, Siri, turn on my iron. So then I don't walk around, plug it in, go back, brush my teeth while it's warming up.
Right.
It sounds silly, but yeah.
Hey,
And
can do
I will
that.
say, HomeKit's, I mean, when it works, it works. It's awesome.
Cool.
And the setup is a breeze.
So for those of you who don't have any smart devices around the house, HomeKit is Apple's platform for, you might have heard the term Internet of Things, right? All of these new digital devices like light bulbs, socket adapters, thermostats, cameras, that can be controlled with your smartphone. So Apple's platform is just called HomeKit, and there are HomeKit approved devices. And the
Yes.
big news there is that Siri will now be able to control. Actually, Siri already controls HomeKit, but they're just enhancing that app. It's going to be a dedicated app on
Exactly.
the iPhone and iPad this
Be able
fall.
to see what devices you have in
So-
an interface instead of just asking Siri to do it.
And little just word of advice, the Nest thermostat is one of the most popular smart connected devices out there. I've got Nest at home. Justin,
Yeah,
you do too.
I've gone.
We have a drop cam, which is now owned by Nest, and the Nest Protect, and we kind of have a pretty good setup there. But one thing about all of Nest's products is they're not HomeKit compatible, right? So HomeKit is Apple's platform.
Yep.
It just so happens that Nest was purchased by Google like a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're obviously competing for that space. So no, my devices still won't work with Siri, but you can enjoy your iron. That is.
I'll do that.
All right. What's
Uh,
next?
Just simple things with like the phone app. Voicemail transcriptions I think are great. It now works if you use any VoIP apps.
Yes. This would be good for
including like a most common one would be something like Skype. Instead of when someone calls you on Skype and it shows you just the real small bar across the phone, it actually will look like it's a regular phone call, but it'll say, from Skype. Just makes it feel a little bit more like a phone, which is great.
I think this is kind of a big play from Apple. I mean, what they're doing is promoting other telephone apps to the same level as your carrier telephone service.
Great.
So I'm really interested to see where this goes.
Sure.
So those of you who, we have a lot of clients telling us, can I just use my iPhone as my work phone? Because I'm always on my iPhone. Can I just receive calls here? One of the big partnerships that's been part of the news cycle this last year is Apple and Cisco. And one of the features they're bringing with their is with their Cisco app called Spark. And the Spark app will integrate with your company's phone system, and you'll be able to answer calls right there on your phone.
Man, it's a big deal.
And you can even, I was reading into it last night, you can set contacts on your phone to default to the Spark app.
Man.
So if I'm just calling Justin or Daniel, for example, it'll just know to use my phone voice system, which will also save costs for businesses, right?
Yeah.
So you're relying less and less on carriers, even though you're using your phone, right? Your iPhone still. So pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Next, the biggest kind of overhaul I think for iOS 10 came with messages. They're changing quite a bit. It's
I'm
almost
having some fun with this one.
It's
Yeah.
almost like
Yeah.
they're like, hey, let's take kind of the essence of Snapchat and inject it into iMessage. That's kind of what I walked away feeling. And I'll be interested to see what other people think when it rolls out. But you'll be able to send now links that come with previews, kind of like if you ever post a link on Twitter and you get that preview box, your iMessages will get that now. Inline video, so if you send a YouTube link, you can actually watch that inside of your iMessage. You'll be able to watch that video. Emojis are getting 3 times bigger, which I'm personally a huge fan of. I communicate in emojis a fair amount. And I think one of the crazier things was the integration of emojis, like all around.
Oh, yeah.
You can
My wife
type out a
loved that feature.
message,
Yeah.
and then you'll be able to hit a button on the side, I think,
Yep.
to kind of inject emojis, and it'll highlight words in your sentence that you can replace with emojis. And you just tap the word, and it'll put the proper emoji in place. So it's probably going to dumb down the next generation maybe a little bit.
Yeah, like just
Or
the
me,
English language.
Or it's probably going to do it to me too.
It
But
needs words.
it's going to be a lot more
Right.
fun. You can even draw animations, right?
Right, yeah, yeah.
Just, Scribble. I think that's
Yeah,
Scribble.
Scribble, that's what
Yeah.
it was called.
You know, going back to the watch for a second, they're adding the Scribble feature to the watch too. So if you ever wanted to reply to someone, like just a quick yes or no, or later or something, now you'll be able to just draw with your finger one letter at a time, and it just transcribes
Picks it up pretty quick.
that one.
Yeah, it's cool.
So as much as I'd love to keep talking about, there are a lot of messages features.
Wow.
This is
list is long.
the business show, guys.
You're right.
So
I'll be interested to see how these iMessage editions
Mhm.
impact Snapchat in
Right.
the 6 to 12 month time.
yeah, and have you guys ever used like Line or WeChat? They're more popular like on the other hemisphere. They're really not that popular here. But I had experimented with Line in the past, like just me and my wife to try to understand these messaging apps. With stickers, like Facebook has added stickers.
Yeah,
So
right.
they're basically taking features from a lot of different chat apps that are very popular in other parts of the world and just stuffing the messages app chock full with all these. So we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
So the next features I want to talk about, it's funny, weren't actually announced yesterday at all, which is typical Apple form. They keep all the consumer features for the keynote, but they actually published some documentation yesterday talking about like their Apple and Cisco partnership. So we're going to talk shop a little bit for business and networks, but for those of us in business, really cool features. 3 quick ones, I'll just go through these. First is large network optimization, which has to do with Wi-Fi networks and improving how a device roams between access points. Before, a device would only jump to another Wi-Fi access point when the signal is too weak, and then it goes and tries to grab another strong signal. So there's that lull in connection while it's transitioning.
Good for the office with multiple access points, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So slightly larger offices, maybe 2. Obviously minimum.
Sure.
And this is going to be a feature with Cisco equipment specifically. So I imagine it'll be with Cisco Meraki, which we work with a lot. It'll be kind of part of those devices. So there will be some hardware upgrades necessary if you want to take advantage of it. The next is app prioritization. And what Cisco is going to do here is actually see the traffic on the network and which app it's coming from, and let you, as an IT manager, prioritize important traffic from non-important traffic on an app basis. So, for example, if your business uses Skype a lot or conference call applications, you can prioritize that over YouTube, for example, right, to keep bandwidth allocated to the more important apps. Last one was just kind of a hint from Cisco. This didn't come from Apple, but on Cisco's announcement page, they hinted at future developments in caching. Now, as a server administrator, when I hear that, I think of Apple's product called Caching Server that's currently available with Mac servers. And what that does is it automatically keeps a copy of app updates and operating system updates in your business network, so that future downloads from other employees will just download from that server, right? They don't have to go all the way back to Apple to pull that download. So essentially it saves bandwidth, and it makes your employees' experience much faster. If you're downloading a 500 megabyte app, it's just going to be blazing fast, which is really helpful for large scale deployments as well. So by this little wink wink nudge nudge that they offered, what I'm kind of reading into this, I could see Cisco building this into their own networking equipment. You know, how cool would that be? If it just
Absolutely.
your firewall and access points automatically know what apps are being downloaded to your users and just cache local copies of it. So again, that's nothing confirmed, pure speculation, but I'm pretty excited to see where that's going. Now, how nerdy do we want to get? This is the last feature we wanted to cover.
I say we just go for it.
Okay. Little warning, this is ultra nerd, something that most people never think about, probably didn't know it even existed. Tell me, have you guys heard of FAT32 or HFS Plus?
I'm in marketing. No.
Okay. So with macOS Sierra, Apple's actually coming out with a brand new file system for hard drives. I told you it was uber nerdy. So this is the language that actual hard drives and SSDs run on and actually write files to disk. And again, this is, I think, too nerdy to be in a keynote, but just some quick examples of how this will enhance your environment. It just makes file management a bit easier. For example, you can partition a large drive to a 4 terabyte volume, even if it's currently only 1 terabyte. And so if you want to just, you know that you're going to grow this data set over time, but you don't have the money to go buy that big of a drive for whatever reason, you can buy drives in the future as needed. So it's sort of tricking the operating system into thinking it's bigger than it really is. Another feature of this new file system, by the way, it's called APFS, Apple File System, is native File Vault. So File Vault will now be, instead of on the operating system level, will be on the hard drive level. So overall, I think just better reliability and performance. File Vault is already very reliable.
File Vault 2,
Right. Yeah, File Vault 2. And works very well in our experience. So any enhancements there are welcome. So that's as nerdy as we're going to get. New file system. Beyond this, no one will really need to know about it except fellow IT administrators. Now, one thing I want to remind us is that while these features are really cool, we're not going to see any of them till this fall.
Yeah, so, all of them.
When do the iOS is typically in like September? Is that right?
That's when like Apple will do an event in September.
Right.
And then it's usually like a 30-day window,
for
before the iPhone comes out.
Right. And before that will be the OS. Just
usually
a week ahead or something like that will be the OS.
That's right.
So for the most part, for iOS, watchOS, tvOS, those are always fun to upgrade pretty soon, right after they're released.
But you're going to see on Apple's website the public beta. You can sign up for public betas here coming up soon. If you're in business, we highly recommend you hold on that. Do not sign up for the public beta. Because the point of the public beta is to work out the bugs, and we don't want any companies to be down for days, hours, however long.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to try out a new feature. We all put that stuff on our machines, and we'll communicate to you guys, hey, this is going to be a great feature once all the bugs are worked out. So
Yeah, and I've done it in the past. We'll never do it again, at least on my daily, work devices.
Right.
We're talking like phone calls just drop,
yeah.
right? Or a text message won't go through. It's buggy software, so please don't install it on your work devices or your family's devices. If you're going to install it, do it on an extra device so you can tinker.
And you'll see that on the show often. We'll say, hey, it's official, the macOS Sierra is out, and we'll probably relay that again, like, hey, even though it's free, it's available in the App Store, don't go get it right now, especially if you're your daily work machine. Just give it a little bit of time, but we'll communicate that. That's kind of the fun part of the show, is we get to let the businesses know what to do, our recommendations of what to update and what not to update. So.
Yep. Well, that wraps it up for this show. It was long enough just recapping the 2-hour event from Apple. So we're not going to get into any questions on this show, but please send in your questions. Now, what's an example of a question that we'd like to hear?
Well, it has to use hashtag #AskFoojee.
Oh, you just went, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Of course.
Okay.
Channeling my Justin Timberlake and Jimmy Fallon.
Hashtag awesome. Well, so we're open to lots of different types of questions, but we really, since this is an Apple 9 to 5 business show, we'd love to hear business-related questions, and you can run the gamut on those. From, hey, I'm thinking about what's the bare minimum security protocols I should be putting on my iPad for work?
Yeah.
Do I need a password? How long does the password need to be? Should I use this thing called an MDM? I think that's a great question. That's just an example.
Exactly. And a lot of questions that or issues that you might come across just personally on your MacBook, whether it's dealing with email. Hey, what's the best email service for a small business? I just started a business, or I've got 10 employees. Where do I go? Google Apps, Microsoft Exchange, Office 365. What's the difference between Office 365 and Exchange?
And GoDaddy's prices are so great. It's like, well,
wouldn't recommend GoDaddy.
Nope.
Throw that out there. GoDaddy does resell Office 365. Which,
now they do.
Right. It's a reliable service.
Yeah.
So if you're
But
doing that, awesome.
that's those kind of conversations and questions we're happy to chat about. We want to chat about.
Yeah. So
You keep asking? Dang it, I keep doing that. I keep smashing my fist on the table.
It's
They
all
told
right.
me not to last week.
yeah,
You keep asking questions, we'll answer.
Thanks
Have
for
a great
watching.
week.